Okay, so this is the next video tutorial, and this one is going to be about using the Smartboard itself. So one thing that would be specific to the lab is that because you have this receiver down here, you just would need to make sure that the receiver was turned on, because if it wasn't turned on with this power button, then you would not be able to see something on either Smartboard. I have just turned one Smartboard on for right now, but I could turn the backboard on as well by just hitting that power button. All right, so let's say that you came into this lab and it was not actually showing this computer, maybe it's showing the other computer, it's showing you the Mac. And you would know that because there'd be all those colorful icons on the bottom. If you come down to the receiver, there's a button here labeled Source. And I have in the past made a mistake and touched other buttons. But what you want to do is stay here with the Source button, and this is an up arrow or a down arrow. You can use either arrow. And you're just going to push those. When you push, you're going to see how it switches to Mac Mini. The board itself is going to go dark for a moment. And you kind of feel sometimes like you're waiting forever when you're waiting with students. And then it will change, there it goes, and it will actually be showing you the input of the Mac. We want to make sure that it's on PC, so I'm going to switch back to PC. Again, the board goes dark, and it should pop up in a minute, and it will show us that we are actually working on the Smartboard. Okay, so once we know that we're for sure on the Smartboard, let me show you one of the ways that I do use the Smartboard quite a bit in my classroom. You can write on the board at any point, so I could write, again, my classic greeting of hello on the board right here. But I do want you to notice some of the newer Smartboards are dual users, which means I could pick up the red pen, and I could pick up the black pen, and I could pick up the green pen, and I could have 3 students writing at once. This board, if you notice, only one user at a time is going to be able to use the board. So if whatever pen you've picked up last is going to be the color that would show. So if I even grab this black pen now, notice it's in green because that was the last pen that I picked up. So you can, sometimes I'm working on my PowerPoints and I might have a question that I'm asking the students, and I'll say, hey, come up here and answer the question, or write down what you think, or maybe I'm showing a piece of artwork and I'm asking, how does this artwork show us what people thought about education in the 1800s? And I might have students circle examples of what they think is important in the picture. But one of my favorite things to do besides working on our PowerPoint is actually to use something called the Smart Notebook. And you're going to see there's a little tiny tab here. I just clicked it. You can click the arrows back and forth. I just click the arrows. And when I click those arrows, this icon appears. It looks like a little notebook. Now, another place I can find it is here. But for some reason, I tend to use this little icon right there. So it's loading and it's popping up. And what this is going to actually give me is a blank page. And I'm going to use this the same way I would do a big piece of chart paper, or I might do a whiteboard. I would use it pretty much the same way. So maybe I'm writing, oh, did you notice as I'm writing, I'm kind of having some trouble writing. My pen appears to be, can you see that? My pen is a little bit off. This is something that happens quite a bit on the Smartboard. And that is actually something called calibration. And I'm going to show you a simple way to fix the calibration. You're going to use both of your fingers. There's 2 buttons right here. You're going to actually hold down both those buttons at the same time. And the targets are going to pop up. This is the calibration board. You can use your finger and press right in the middle, or you can grab one of the pens. I usually just use my finger. My hands-on girl. Okay? And then I might just erase it. And now what you should notice, sometimes we write a little too quickly and the pen has a hard time kind of keeping up. But now as I'm writing, I can see it. Yes, that's much better. What is DAP, Developmentally Appropriate Practice? Okay, so maybe I have students come up here and they write what they think it is. They might think it's process art. They might think, and someone comes up and they add, oh, I think it's child choice. Someone might come up and they might say, oh, it's knowing milestones, and they might just go and go with that. And then at the end of the discussion, I might want to save these notes. And I actually do that quite frequently. And then I email these notes to students so they can add them to their collection of notes. And the way that I would, well, first of all, let me show you. Let's say that I was writing my list, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm out of room. So I would just hit this button, Extend Page. And you'll notice that my page keeps going. Did you see how it got a little bit smaller? Sometimes I find that to be too visually distracting, so what I do is I go to View, and then under Zoom, I go 100%. And then it makes it large again, and then if you use the side scroll bar, hit Extend Page, you could just scroll up and down and look at your notes, which is pretty cool. So now I've written a lot of information here. I like this. I think it's important to class, and I want to save it. I'm going to go to File, and then I'm going to go to Save As. Now, I can save it as a notebook file, which sometimes I do, and then I could come back and use that, type in a name. A keyboard actually would pop up, or I could go walk over there, and I could write ECE 111 Notes, and then hit Save. But something else I actually like to do a little bit better is I use the export option. So I'm going to hit export right now. And then do you see here where it says PDF? Now it's going to export it as a document that really any student could view. So the most important thing when you're looking at this is you need to know when you hit save where you're going to save it to. So if I had plugged a flash drive in over there on my computer, I could hit this drop down arrow and I could choose that. Or remember, when you're on campus, you're always going to have this nifty little drive with your name on it. You can hit that, and then I could write the same kind of thing, ECE. And just hit save. Now, one reason you might want to save it both ways is sometimes we come back to this week after week. Okay, so now let's add to our knowledge of developmentally appropriate practice. So if I close this, but I've saved it as a Smart Notebook file and I come back, see, I just opened it from that icon. I go to File and Open. I would, of course, have to remember where I saved it. I think it saves under, and I can't remember, or I saved the notebook file, but I could open up the notebook file and then I could use that again. So that's a kind of nifty feature. One other thing I love to do with this board is I also like timelines. So maybe I ask the students to timeline the milestones for physical development, and we'll look at ages like birth to 1. So students, if they say things like, they're just brainstorming, so they might say crawling, and maybe they say scooting, and then maybe they say hold to standing. Maybe they say walk with help, or something like that. And then I ask, what about, when children first start to lift their head up, is that part of walking? And we might make the case that yes, it is. It lifts head. Okay, so we've listed a couple of different things, and now I want to put those in chronological order. What I can do is I can tap these words, and I can actually, as long as I've written it as a chunk, I can move these around. I know you're thinking that's really cool, because it is really cool, and I can kind of move these around, or maybe I can say, maybe this isn't one that we want to include, and I could erase that and make a list. So that's another thing I really enjoy. Or if we had a Venn diagram and we were comparing and contrasting, we could also move things around. Another thing I really love about the Smartboard. Now, one thing I will say is sometimes when you're working in PowerPoint, if you start writing all over it, it will ask you if you want to save your ink layer. And you can do that and hit save and do it the same way that I just showed you. And if you save the ink layer, then you would actually be saving your notes on top of your PowerPoint, which is a really, really cool thing. So we do actually use quite a bit of those features in this room and really enjoy using the Smartboard in that way. Thanks.